Has changed in a week. You may have found it exhausting. I know I have. But imagine if you were the president. Yes, it was only just a week ago. The New York Times broke the story that Trump paid only $750 in federal income taxes the year that he won the presidency and paid no taxes at all in 10 of the previous 15 years. 2 days later, the president was criticized for his performance, shall we say, in what some headlines called the worst presidential debate in history. Then came an avalanche of positive coronavirus tests in Trump's inner circle, starting with Hope Hicks and leading to Trump himself being flown to a hospital infected with COVID-19. Now just 30 days till Election Day. All his campaign events are canceled. And the president slipping on the top issue that he has campaigned on, the economy. An NBC News Wall Street Journal poll out today showing Trump still leading Biden on handling of the economy by 7 points. But that's down from 10 points from before the debate. To discuss all of this, I want to bring in Anthony Scaramucci, former White House communications director, and Tim O'Brien, Bloomberg senior opinion columnist and the author of Trump Nation, The Art of Being the Donald. Tim, I'm going to start with you. I was having this conversation with one of my good friends last night, who is a really brilliant lawyer, and she said to me, essentially, this seems like it could actually be a moment for Donald Trump where he could feasibly turn this around. And here's why she thinks he could turn this around. He could say, for instance, I was wrong. I made a mistake. I'm sorry. This thing is terrible, and we need to help save lives.
Yeah.
Any chance this president would ever say something
Zero.
like that?
Donald Trump doesn't apologize. Donald Trump doesn't admit mistakes. Donald Trump will never say he's lost. Donald Trump will never admit to any kind of human failings or errors. He hasn't done it for, 60 of his 74 years. He's not going to start doing it now, and he's not going to, I think, start doing it particularly after a week in which you've had a series of events that have all been revelations about core things about who he is that are empirically validated this week. On Monday, you had tax returns that put financial clothing on the fact that he is a haphazard businessman and a human billboard who has been an inept deal maker his whole life. Then on Wednesday, you have someone who is trafficked openly in bigotry and racism, prove himself on a national stage to be unwilling to disavow white supremacy. And then in the wee hours of Friday morning, he's forced to disclose that a pandemic that he has tried to dismiss time and again has invaded his body. And it's out there for everyone to see. He can't just shunt it aside. And now you have him pressuring his doctors, I think, to provide glowing diagnoses of how he's faring. I hope he survives this and fares well, but we can't really trust what we're hearing from any of these people because he cares more about image and surface than he does about reality. But the problem with him this week is reality has intruded like a tsunami.
We're going to get into those taxes in just a moment because I do want to cover that. But it's so interesting because we talk a lot about transparency, right? We're calling for a lot of transparency coming out of this White House. And yet if we feel like they are saying something that is misleading, we're not believing what they're saying. And so I don't think there's any way that this White House can even be transparent because of the history of what they have done leading up until this point. Let's put you back in the job for a moment. Let's make day 12 for Anthony Scaramucci as communications director for the White House and ask you how they spin this thing. How do they spin this COVID diagnosis for the president?
All right, so assuming I don't take the cyanide pill and I can get through day 12, I would basically tell these guys right now, the buck stops with us. Forget about the president. Tim is 100% right. He's never going to change. But our reputations, who we are as people, who we are as patriots, it's incumbent upon us right this second to be as transparent as possible, as authentic as possible. And whether the president likes it or not, we have to tell the American people the truth of everything that is going on. There's 28 or so days left, 29 days left till the election, and it is super important for us and our families and our country to speak with that level of transparency. I just want to say one thing about Tim's book. I am certain that the president loved the cover, Tim. He probably didn't like anything in the inside. but that's about as muscular as I've seen the guy, you know, probably since he was in 12th grade.
There's actually a story. I don't want to divert here, but there's a little story with that cover. I'll do it very quickly. He made me promise before the book came out, that I would send him the cover art before the book was published. So I kept that promise. I was at the New York Times at the time. We sent a PDF. My publisher sent a PDF of the cover to him, and he immediately called me up and he said, "I love this cover. I look like Superman. I look like some sort of a Superman."
Thank you for that impersonation, Tim O'Brien. Okay. I want to talk about some of those economy numbers, right? So it seems as if the American public, from some of this new polling, Trump still has a 7-point lead or so when it comes to confidence in handling the economy, better to handle the economy there. I think this is fascinating, Tim, right? Because we look at these taxes that came out from the New York Times reporting on Sunday. This guy has lost money hand over fist. He made a ton of loot when he did his reality show, The Apprentice. He had a lot of sponsorship deals coming out of The Apprentice. Even that money, that $400+ million that he made from that money, he lost. He has put all of his branding, his confidence, his bread and butter on the fact that he is a good businessman. And that thing completely tore it apart. The New York Times reporting completely tore that apart. But yet the American people, Tim, still feel as if 7% of them in that lead still feel as if he will better handle this economy than Joe Biden. What's going on?
Well, I think Trump has successfully created this myth around himself as the entrepreneurial guru to the masses. And that really got deeply, I think, solidified through The Apprentice. Prior to The Apprentice, he had been a punchline of jokes about excesses of the 1980s. And The Apprentice really revivified him. It's also important to remember Donald Trump is still a wealthy man. Depending on how he works out his debts coming due in the next few years, I think he's still going to be comfortably wealthy. But he's been so lucky, and he's been the beneficiary of an immense fortune he inherited. A lot of stuff that he's put his hands on himself, he's blown up. But people don't read, and people don't really pay attention. And Trump understands that. He has been able to. He's the most successful con man, I think, in modern history. He has really been able to put over this idea of competence and can-doism to people when staring in the face is a long track record of wreckage that got repeated during his presidency. And I think it's up to Biden to drive home a different message.
Anthony Scaramucci, Tim O'Brien, thank you to you both, and thank you for that anecdote on the cover